Good.
So could you please introduce yourself?
I'm Steve Radelet. I'm the Chief Economist at USAID.
Great. So Steve, what prompted you to get involved in creating change in development through a government agency?
Well, I've been involved in development for a long time now, for about 30 years, starting when I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And I've had the great opportunity and privilege to work on development issues from several different perspectives. From an academic perspective, when I was at Harvard and working at other universities, from the field perspective when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and then later living in various countries. But I also wanted to have the perspective of working from the U.S. government, because as a society, we as Americans, one of the great ways that we can influence development and fight poverty around the world is through our government agencies. And so I wanted to get involved from that perspective to see what I could do to help to make sure in my small way that our programs could be as effective as possible in fighting poverty around the world. And so when the opportunity came up with this administration, I was more than happy to have the second chance for me to do that. I actually was in the Department of the Treasury at the end of the Clinton administration and beginning of the Bush administration. So this is my second tour working for the U.S. government. And it's really great to have an opportunity to show the best face of America to the rest of the world.
Great. So now, what's holding us back in achieving the Millennium Development Goals?
Well, the good news about the Millennium Development Goals is that actually many countries are now on Millennium Development Goal pace, even though they won't actually achieve them by 2015. Here's what I mean by that. What's holding many countries back is actually the rather poor progress during the first 10 years of the Millennium Development Goal time period, which stretched from 1990 to 2015. And the fact is that from 1990 until the late 90s, around the year 2000, for many countries, there was almost no progress at all. So by the year 2000, it was pretty clear that most countries weren't going to make it. But the good news is that since 2000, the pace has accelerated quite rapidly. And so actually, if the Millennium Development Goals had been from 2000 to 2025, we would now be saying, hey, there's a lot of countries that are on pace. So that's one answer, is that the news is better than it first looks. But at a deeper level, there are still a number of countries who wouldn't achieve the goals even if they had more time. The great responsibility for achievements in development rests with the people and who live in and lead developing countries themselves. And when we say that the great responsibility for achievement lies with them, the great responsibility for not making progress also lies with them. We as outsiders can help and can have some impact, but it really has to do with what goes on in the countries themselves. Sometimes it's policy choices, sometimes it's poor leadership, where we have countries that are under dictatorship or corruption. Sometimes it's the geography of the countries that happen to be located by historical accident in landlocked desert areas like Chad and Burkina Faso and Niger have a much tougher time than countries in coastal areas. So it's a combination of geography, sometimes policy mistakes, often poor leadership that get in the way. But then we in the international community can do more. We've done more in the last 10 years, both in terms of the money that we provide, but also we can do more in terms of making that money more effective. So we have a role to play as well. Part of it is in the money that we provide. Part of it is also in other issues, other areas like trade policy, where frankly some of our trade policies and our agricultural policies here in the United States do make it more difficult for other countries to get the agricultural growth and the food production necessary to meet the Millennium Development Goals.
Okay. And so now, how can the youth become more involved in this field, in the field of development?
Well, two things. One is to go out and live in and work in developing countries when you can. It's a little hard to do when you're 19 and 20, but to try to look for opportunities to do that at the earliest opportunities. While you're in college, you can start by doing a semester abroad or a summer abroad in developing countries. When you graduate, you can look for experiences in the Peace Corps or in teaching programs or one of a wide array of of opportunities for people to go live and work in developing countries. My wife and I started as Peace Corps volunteers. I think it's one of the greatest programs that the United States has to offer. My wife is now the Deputy Director of the Peace Corps, so I'm a little bit biased, I suppose. But that's what got us started. And you cannot, in my view, make serious contributions to development without actually living and working in developing countries to see it firsthand. So that's one answer. In the shorter term horizon, you can get involved and advocate and talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your families, get involved in things like the One Campaign and get others involved, which is a great place to learn about what's going on and to advocate political leaders for change, or things like the U.S. Global Leadership Commission, which is another great community that students can get involved in, start groups at the college or university to get others involved, just to learn about what's going on and to raise consciousness of the challenges that countries face and what we can do about them.
Great. So when you were 20 years old, what were you doing?
I'm not sure I want to say that on public record, but no, when I was 20 years old, I was a junior in college at Central Michigan University, happily running on a track and cross-country team and actually not thinking much about development issues at all, and on my way to becoming a high school teacher, a high school math and science teacher, which I did outside of Boston for 2 years. When I got to know the woman who is now my wife, started thinking much more seriously about taking those teaching talents that I had and joining the Peace Corps. So it took a few years for me to actually get involved in development. But at that time I was more locally focused. I was involved actually in some local charities and doing some volunteer work around tutoring and involved more in the local community. But my focus internationally came a little bit later.
Great. So now what advice do you want to leave for some college students and teenagers?
Well, get involved, have fun, and learn what you can about developing countries. Read a lot, get involved in debates, as I said, maybe join the One Campaign or the USGLC or other communities where you can contribute and learn. Set up groups at your college or university where you might read books together or look at policy debates or the budget or debate the effectiveness of foreign aid or those kinds of things, and look for opportunities to travel and get involved. And also look for opportunities for people from developing countries that are visiting your community, that might be at your university or might live in the community. Invite them in to give a talk to a small group, to tell them you about their life experiences, what they see, what they think the constraints and the problem are. The more you can reach out to the voices of the people who live this day to day, the more you're going to learn and really grow and become involved in a good way.
Great. Thank you very
Good.
much.
My pleasure.
It's a
Thank
pleasure
you very
speaking
much.
with
Thanks
you.
for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.